Welcome to the first episode of Researchers in Tourism. I am today's host, Ketti Hiezl, and that's our co-host. And if you are with us live, then please leave your questions down below. We will try to ask them for you. So our first guest is a tourism researcher, traveler, teacher. I have the honor to speak with Dr. Tamara Ratz. So welcome, Tamara. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here.
So, as I said, we know that you're a tourism researcher, but could you give us a bit of an insight? Why did you choose this field?
Okay, so ever since I remember, I always wanted to travel. So basically from the age of 3 or 4. And first I wanted to be a diplomat, an ambassador, and there was only one university in Hungary where you could study international relations. When I finished secondary school, so I applied to the University of Economic Sciences, which is now Corvinus University. And of course, I quickly realized that I wouldn't be a really good diplomat. And so my second choice was to study tourism. And I was really, because I had this impression, like most of the tourism students actually today, that if you study tourism and hospitality, then you are going to travel. This is not true, but, or it might be true. And I was really, really lucky that when we had to choose a major at the university, I was studying business administration in general, a new tourism major started. That was started by Professor Márton Lengyel, who just came back to Hungary from Spain from the WTO. And of course, since I wanted to travel, then my dream was to work for an airline. I chose this major, and it was really, really exciting. So that's how I ended up in the field of tourism. And then after graduating, I had a job. I did an internship at a travel agency, but I was kind of looking for something else, something a little bit more stimulating intellectually, a job where I really had to think. And again, I was really lucky because that was when I graduated, that was the first year when my university launched the PhD program. PhD did not exist as a degree, did not exist in Hungary before that. So it was brand new territory for all of us, but I applied to this PhD program and got admitted. And then it was within this program that I realized that being a tourism researcher is actually a career. That's actually a profession. That there are people out there who are doing this for a living. And then I got really excited.
And then you also get the stimuli that you were lacking before.
Well, in Hungary, being a tourism researcher, I don't think that was something that you would consider as a career before. And then as part of our PhD program, we had to spend some time abroad. And again, I was really lucky. So, you know, having this wonderful opportunities, it's really part of my life. I've been lucky many times. And so I got a scholarship
Mhm,
with my colleague and best friend, Dr. László Pucko.
mhm,
We got the scholarship to study at the University of Surrey, to do research at the University of Surrey, but also to attend classes as auditing students.
mhm.
And there we had this amazing library, of course, so we had access to all the journals that didn't even know that existed before. And then that was really there, the University of Surrey in Guildford, that the world opened up, this world of tourism research opened up for me.
And then since then, I've seen attraction tourism, shopping tourism, service development, innovation. So your interests are diverse. Where do you get the inspiration from for like new research? Is it from traveling or do you have other sources?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest problem with me is that I become interested about anything that comes my way. Yes, inspirations come from lots of different sources. From traveling, of course. I think there are lots of tourism researchers who use their own experiences as inspiration. Because as we travel, I think we constantly observe ourselves, our behavior, our reactions, the services, the attractions, the management. So basically everything. You cannot really travel as an average tourist. You are looking at everything from a researcher's point of view. So yeah, from my own travel experiences, from conferences, conference presentations, but also often the experiences offered during a conference or the little conversations in the coffee breaks. So they can be also very, very inspiring. Articles, of course. Um, Projects often come my way, and then if the project topic is interesting, then it can also be a source of for another research as well. So lots of different sources.
And how do you organize these different researches? I assume there are always more than one research going on at the same time. So how do you organize around them, or how do you focus on one or the other?
Well, I could say that, of course, one of the organizing factors is the deadlines.
Yeah.
So whatever whatever is first, is going to be done probably first. But I try to. Well, I do have teaching as well, of course, and I do have administrative responsibilities because I'm the head of the tourism department at the Kodalány János University. So, but I try. Fortunately, there are so-called research days at the university, so I don't have to spend all my time in the office. So I try to compart, to create a specific periods for each research and try to focus on one topic at the time. But so that would be, I think, the ideal way to do this. That was the best time of my, I think the best, probably one of the best times of my life was doing my PhD, because then I could really focus on one topic for years.
Mhm.
And that was amazing. So for anybody who is now doing their PhD, it's going to be a really special period when you don't have to do 100 different things. But probably you have to do 100 different things at the same time. But at least your research focus can be one,
Mhm.
and you can really dive into it.
Mhm.
Now it's much more difficult, but I try to focus on one topic at a time. But sometimes it's not possible because if there are three different research meetings on the same day and they are all related to the same to different topics, then it can be challenging.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's also exciting.
Yeah, you get, I guess, from one idea to another. It must be a hard shift, or if you're also
I mean,
interested.
it's yeah, but you can if you look at the list of all the topics that I've ever done research on the one hand, it seems like it's really diverse. Yeah, it's from climate change, like you said, to visitor management, to I don't know, cultural tourism. But tourism is always there.
Yeah.
And I very much see tourism as one phenomenon, one system with lots of different characteristics and lots of different aspects, of course, dimensions, etc. But all these topics, in my mind, are connected in a way,
Mhm.
despite the fact that there are lots of disciplines in tourism, and I know that it's often an issue as well for researchers, that if you are if you come from marketing, then you have to focus on marketing, otherwise your research is not going to be valuable enough for your university or for any kind of grant, etc. I have been, since I started earlier, I think I've been really lucky in that sense that I I have only felt this pressure that I should stay within a discipline. I only felt this in a very moderate way.
Mhm.
So I had the freedom to move around a little bit and feel that I am a tourism researcher. And anything that's tourism
Mhm.
is a valid research topic for me. So I haven't really had to justify my
Mhm.
choices so far, but I know it's different now. So there are lots of researchers out there, lots of universities out there that really try to force their colleagues, their PhD candidates into one field.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
And do you have a favorite topic that you have done so far? So is there anything that is like, oh, I enjoy that more than the others, or?
Oh, well, like I said, I really loved my PhD topic. It was about the sociocultural impacts of tourism. And at Lake Balaton, and for those of you who are familiar with Hungary, know that Lake Balaton is a tourist destination, and it started to be developed about 150 years ago or even more. So there you can really study all kinds of phenomena associated with tourism. And that was an amazing time. I had time to do lots of field research, interviews, questionnaires. So I spent a lot of time there in the field. So I really loved that. And the impacts of tourism have been interesting for me ever since. But I think they are interesting for most of us because, well, the whole purpose of tourism development is to ensure higher quality of life for the local population, but this is not always the case. And it's really interesting to see why this is happening and how it's happening and what are the differences between the perceived impact of tourism and the actual impacts, etc. So that was one of my favorite topics. Since then, I've been involved in various research projects with colleagues, and now we have a really exciting new project that just started this January, basically. The Here the focus is going to be on what kind of features make a place a good place, a great place, an exciting place for travelers,
Mhm.
and we prepared the application before COVID, obviously. So when over tourism was the buzzword, and when everybody was focusing on this, and now the situation has changed completely during the time that we applied for this grant and that we got this grant. So now it's an interesting challenge how to change, how to modify this topic while keeping the original objectives, but also including this new reality,
Very good.
and that looking at what makes a destination, a place, a good place in the eye of the tourists, but also in the eye of the developers in this post-COVID or now, during COVID period. But of course, we are going to focus on the post-COVID period. So basically, I'm interested in everything that has something to do with how tourists behave, react, think. I'm also very much interested in anything related to culture and cultural tourism and how culture and heritage are used as resources in tourism development. But often it's the last project that's the most exciting because that's the latest idea, and then so that's why I'm really happy that I have so many diverse topics.
Okay.
I never done anything that I didn't want to.
Mhm.
So again, I've been lucky in that sense that there was a moment quite early when I was applying for. I was writing an application, and then I was, first I was trying to think with the committee's eye that what might be those questions or what might be those outcomes that they would like to see.
Mhm.
And then I realized that, okay, on the one hand, I have no idea.
Mhm.
I don't know them. I don't know what they might want to see. And on the other hand, do I really want to research something, work on something for years that I'm not really interested in, just because I believe that it might be easier to sell this topic?
Mhm.
So then I decided that I will only apply for topics that I am really interested in. And then if I get it, fine. Okay, again, I know that is not everybody's attitude, but this has always been my attitude. If I get it, great, then I can work on something that I'm excited about. And if I don't get it, then I don't get it. But I don't want to apply with a topic that I feel that it's currently hot, it's currently popular, but I don't really care about.
You talked about grants and researches and everything, and there is a lot of pressure on publishing in academia, especially today. But of course, there is also the need for quality research. So, how would you recommend to deal with this system when someone is really new at it?
Well, I think when you start doing your PhD, you you want to publish about your PhD, and we didn't. It's interesting because when I was doing my PhD, and I was doing it for quite a long time because I was also doing lots of other things,
Mhm,
I wanted to publish simply because I enjoyed writing.
mhm,
And then at the end, when I got to the point when I finished my dissertation as well, and then the university looked at whether I complied with all the requirements, then I saw that, oh, I had finished I had enough, more than enough papers already.
mhm,
But I didn't write those papers during the PhD process because I had this pressure that I had to publish. I wrote them because I wanted to write because I had some results, and I was happy to share them with the world, and because it was also a way to. Obviously, I started first writing the conference proceedings because that was a good way to practice
mhm,
writing, and then if I thought that an article was, paper was good, then I submitted it to a journal, and so I think nowadays I see that among PhD students that it seems like there is there is the pressure to obviously to publish, but also publishing it seems to be something bigger than it actually is. I think that, oh my god, I have to publish and this or that journal. So if you have a good topic, and obviously you have a good topic, and then if you you write a paper because you want to talk about the topic and because you want to learn how to write a good paper, then the publishing is the result. It's not the aim somehow.
mhm.
I don't know if it's clear what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. I think also as a PhD student, maybe it's also a little bit because of the new system that we have in Hungary, that it's more like a fixed time that you have to finish in, or maybe it's also what we see from big academics that like publish, publish, publish,
Oh,
that it's there as a pressure as far as
no, I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that, yeah, obviously you should. You have to. That's part of the job. So only, being a researcher, it only makes sense if you like to write
yeah.
and to talk, of course, and to read. But it's I'm just talking about the attitude that if you
Mhm,
look at publishing, that you publish because you want to, because you enjoy writing, thinking first and then writing, then the whole process is going to be a different experience than if you publish because you know that you have to, because that's a requirement. So the end result will be the same, that you publish your research
exactly.
results. It's just when you are in this process, then you might enjoy it more
Mhm.
if you do it because you actually like writing and talking about communicating your results, and not because you know that there is somebody behind you and looking at you that, okay, you have to
So change the
publish.
day of
The
the
result is the same, of course. You have to publish. Yeah, it's important.
day. If you to think back to yourself, you already said like started with proceedings. So when you were a young researcher, with what you know now, what would you have done differently, if anything?
Oh, well, that's again difficult to say because on the one hand, for myself, I wouldn't have done anything differently.
Hmm.
Uh, but for somebody who wants to build a career, no, during my PhD, I think I wouldn't have done anything differently because I was I was really involved in my research. So I went to lots of conferences. I published as much as I could. So so I was really active. I and that was important actually because I met many people who are now my friends at this first years, so first conferences that, and now 20 years later, we are still colleagues and friends. So maybe yes, I could have been even more focused. I could have finished my PhD faster, for example. Then I wouldn't have had that much stress at the last year. But on the other hand, I never felt sorry for not finishing it faster because I felt that, you know, now I think that yes, you can do a PhD in 3 years, but if you have enough time to really think about that project, that topic, and to read more and even more and even more, you can never read enough about the topic. Of course, there is a moment when you have to finish,
Yes.
and you say that yes, this dissertation could be improved forever, but now this is the moment when I'm going to finish it and submit it, and I'm not going to be sitting on it any longer because yeah, I had to finish it. But I think I could have been a little more focused in a way, focusing on one topic, for example. That might be a good way for some people. It wouldn't have been good for me because I would have probably found it boring to do research on the same topic. But it can be very rewarding as well if there is one field or one area that you're really interested in, and then build your academic career or research career on to become the number one expert on this field. I've been happier with studying all kinds of phenomena in tourism, because for me it was more interesting. But
No,
it's not
no.
necessarily it's definitely not the only way, and it's not even necessarily the best way.
Well, I don't think necessarily I'm not an expert, but I guess there are no best ways. We're all different. But I think myself, I also the type who is interested in more things than just like one uh, field strictly. I can relate. If you can put it into maybe one sentence, or if not even a sentence, maybe in one message, is your advice for PhD students or people who would like to start a PhD?
uh to Well, I think for me the most important has been that like I said, I always wanted to travel, so this is still true. So I want to attend conferences as much as possible, as many conferences as possible, because they are really an invaluable source of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
They also motivate you to finish projects in time, because if you have to present them. So if you don't go to conferences, then well, you can work on them as long as you wish, less deadlines. Um, to be out there, to be active, to be social in the sense. But I found that networking in a there are lots of different ways to do networking. Networking for the sake of networking, so that you can tell about yourself that you know all the important people in your field, or networking because you really are inspired by someone, and you want to well, you want to get to know that person as a person and not necessarily as somebody holding a position. um and looking at you're constantly looking for inspiration. So I think the best researchers are those who always have questions that they would like to find the answers for. Not because it's part of their job. Yeah, it's part of their job, but it's a lucky coincidence that it's part of your job, that you get paid for finding answers for questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very, very helpful, very grateful throughout my whole life for this opportunity that I get paid for doing what I'm doing. But having questions and having an interest and being excited about finding topics that you can be excited about, not doing it because you have to. Like I said at the beginning, reading a lot. Yeah, that's can be really important. Keeping up with changes in methods, methodology. Really paying attention to what journals expect,
Mm-hmm.
and really listening. Yeah, that's important, I think. Learning how to take criticism,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's difficult at the beginning. So when I think it happens to all of us, when you write a paper and you think it's perfect because you worked on it so long, and then you submit it, and then you get it back with the reviewers' comments, and then you feel that, come on, no. And then okay, you wait a day or two, and then you start reading those comments again, and then you realize that they are so helpful,
Mhm,
and they really they are really useful for you to improve the paper. So to be open
mhm,
to suggestions, to be open to criticism, understand that it's not against you. These are all very helpful suggestions
mhm,
concerning your work. So this is also true in a thesis defense, for example, in any kind of situation when you have to present your work and you have to defend your work. Uh, but yeah, remain interested in,
mhm.
find the topics that you are excited about.
In my experience, of also what I've heard from other PhD
Mhm.
students, sometimes the methods or the methodologies that are used are also like really important. I would say there is also pressure on to use the correct methods, or depending on who the audience is going to be, that they are more qualitative or quantitative researchers. Have you ever had this, that you had to change a little bit the way you're questioning or way you're finding answers to your questions because of whom you are going to present it to?
Yes, the methodology is probably the most important, yeah, but in the sense that you have to be able to defend your methodology. And yes, sometimes it's challenging because you are convinced that you want to use, let's say, qualitative methods. And then you have an audience or you have a committee that only values or only acknowledges quantitative methods, or it might be the other way around, but it's usually not the other way around. Uh, I think the most important that you have to be able to prove that the methodology you selected, you applied, is correct for that particular topic.
Mhm,
And I think it's also important. Well, for me, it would be important. And when I review a paper, I always look for sense in the research. That there are lots of studies when the methodology is perfect, state of the art, absolutely correct, but you read the paper and there is absolutely nothing exciting. I never forget, it was one of my very first experiences at the US conference ages ago as a PhD student. There was one paper with an amazing multivariate statistical analysis that actually proved, but really using everything, every kind of method that was available, they proved that if there are more people present on a 50-meter stretch of a path in a national park, it will be perceived as more crowded. And I was like, do you really need to use multivariate statistics to prove this? This is common sense. So often it's important to, I think it's important to, yes, use the methodology correctly, but also have to say something with that methodology. So not just apply to prove that, yes, I know how to create a structural equation model, but
mhm.
create one if it makes sense for your research.
What you want to prove.
Yes, yes. If it's relevant for your research, not just for the sake of proving that, oh, I can do that, because sometimes the results are disappointing. The methodology is fantastic, but the results are not so exciting. So
Yeah,
but I know it's difficult to find the balance in these two, because sometimes when you are defending your PhD, then that's what the committee is going to look for,
yeah,
the methodology. But
yes,
I think that it's also important to,
yeah,
in the long term at least,
yeah,
to look at the results.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, also talking about relevance, it's hard not to talk about the pandemic, as
Mhm.
you have already mentioned. I mentioned it, and I would say a lot of young adults now look at tourism. They are here to choose higher education, and they look at this field, and maybe they are scared to choose it, or they are already in it with their bachelors, but now they are uncertain if they should continue with this field. Do you think they should be worried? Did the pandemic change your views on tourism?
No, 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 absolutely not. I understand why somebody is worried, but if you look at Yes, this is the biggest crisis the tourism industry has to uh, undergo, but has undergone. But if you look at the previous crisis, the economic crisis in 2008, 2009, to 9/11 in 2001, you could see that the industry always bounced back. And if you look at what happened in the summer when most of the restrictions were lifted or loosened in Europe, people started to travel again. Domestic tourism in many countries hasn't seen such a great season for I don't know, decades. So the demand is there, the supply is there. There are lots of really committed tourism entrepreneurs who are waiting to be able to serve customers again. So yes, tourism has been one of those industries that's really hit by the pandemic. But most of the other activities, most of the other industries, most of the other services that are based on human contact have been equally affected. And we cannot all be, you know, we can all we cannot all choose just a couple of those professions that haven't really been affected. So I think the tourism industry will bounce back really quickly. I'm very positive in that sense. So I think even this summer is going to be pretty good, and next summer is going to be amazing. In not even necessarily amazing because we might be talking about over tourism problems again very soon. Um, Nothing that's important as a precondition of tourism. Motivation is still there. Uh, it's only these administrative restrictions and of course the increased fear that affect the tourism industry. So no, I don't think that in the long term those who now want to work in tourism need to worry. But of course, nobody expected such a crisis. But like I said, it has affected the cultural sector. It has affected events. So not only tourism. It has affected retail, education, etc. So I that's what I said at our open days at the university. That I think in the medium term, in the long term, if this is what you always wanted to do, then
Okay.
yes, do it.
Mhm. Okay. I told you 30 minutes, so I have to let you go back to work.
Okay.
But before, is there anything that you think I should have asked, or you would like to tell us?
No,
If
you
yeah,
had all the
we
good
covered it, I hope.
questions. Yeah, super
I
good.
hope it was. For me, it was definitely useful information, and I think I got some inspiration also. I hope it was like that for other PhD students. So thank you very much for being here today and being the first one in this series. And I also hope we can meet soon in
Yeah, me
person,
too. Yeah.
maybe in a conference.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Well,
very
I
much.
think it's a really rewarding uh, career life. I like I said, I'm every day I'm grateful for being able to do this. So I think it's for someone who is interested in the world. It's becoming a researcher is a great choice. Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity.
Thank you very much
Thank
for the
you.
conversation. And thank you very much for watching. Please join us the next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.